I used to believe my wife loved me the way I loved her, completely, without conditions, without games. I was wrong. 12 years. That's how long Julia and I had been together, 8 of them married. Looking back now, I can pinpoint exactly when things changed, but in those early days, we were everything I'd ever wanted in a partnership. We met at my cousin Rachel's birthday party. Julia stood by the kitchen island, engaged in a heated debate about whether cryptocurrency was a legitimate investment or elaborate pyramid scheme. Her passion drew me in, not just her beauty, though her auburn hair and green eyes certainly caught my attention, but the way she dismantled opposing arguments while maintaining this playful smile. When I joined the conversation, she turned that intellect on me, challenging every point I made. By the end of the night, we'd exchanged numbers and I knew I'd met someone extraordinary. Our courtship unfolded naturally. Late nights on my apartment balcony, sharing bottles of wine and discussing everything from childhood traumas to retirement dreams. She told me about growing up with parents who barely spoke to each other, vowing she'd never settle for a marriage built on silent resentment. I shared my fear of becoming my workaholic father, present in body but absent in spirit. We promised each other we'd always communicate, always prioritize our connection. The early marriage years validated every hope I'd harbored. We bought a 1960s fixer-upper in Maple Grove, spending weekends covered in paint and sawdust, transforming someone else's neglect into our sanctuary. When my promotion to regional manager fell through 3 times, Julia held me through the disappointment, reminding me that titles didn't define my worth. When she decided to leave corporate accounting to start her consulting firm, I became her first cheerleader, helping her rehearse pitches until 2 a.m. We built traditions without trying. Sunday mornings meant French press coffee on the back deck, no phones allowed, just us and whatever random topic struck our fancy. Thursday nights were for cooking together. She'd pick the recipe, I'd pour the wine, and we'd dance badly to whatever Spotify suggested while onions sautéed. We planned elaborate future vacations we'd never take, creating detailed itineraries for trips to Patagonia and New Zealand, knowing full well we'd end up in Napa or Sedona like always. Our last genuinely happy moment burns clear in my memory. Our 10th anniversary at Chez Laurent, the same French bistro where we'd had our first official date. Julia wore the black dress I'd bought her in Chicago, the one that made her look like she belonged in a 1940s film noir. She laughed at my terrible attempt at ordering in French, covering my hand with hers across the white tablecloth. "You know what I love about us?" she said, her eyes soft in the candlelight. "We never became those couples who run out of things to say." I squeezed her hand. "Give us time. I'm sure we'll be grunting at each other over breakfast eventually," I replied with a grin. She shook her head, suddenly serious. "Never. Promise me, Adam. We'll never become strangers living in the same house." "I promise," I said, meaning it with every fiber of my being. I remember thinking we were bulletproof. That night, she was still my Julia, not the stranger who would try to break me. The shift started 6 weeks later. Julia bounced into the kitchen one Tuesday evening, practically glowing with excitement. "I joined a new gym today," she announced. "Fit Life, the one on Morrison Street. They have this amazing women's strength training program." "That's great, babe," I said, genuinely pleased. "The best part is the community," she continued, her eyes bright. "I met some incredible women today. They have this whole philosophy about female empowerment and supporting each other. Melissa, she's sort of the group leader. She said most women don't realize their own power in relationships." "Sounds like you found your tribe," I responded. "I think I did." She wrapped her arms around me from behind. "You don't mind if I go to their evening sessions, right? They meet 3 times a week." "Of course not. I want you to be happy," I assured her. Within a month, Julia was checking her phone constantly, smiling at messages in a way she hadn't smiled at me in months. She'd light up at notifications, typing rapid responses with enthusiasm she used to reserve for planning our weekend adventures. When I asked about it, she'd wave dismissively. "Just the gym girls. They're hilarious," she'd say. I encouraged her new friendships, believing social connections would enhance our marriage, not replace it. I had no idea I'd just endorsed my own destruction. The changes crept in like fog, imperceptible until I found myself lost in my own home. Julia's 3 gym sessions became 5, sometimes 6. She'd leave at 6 p.m., returning after 9, her hair still damp with sweat, her energy crackling like electricity that had nothing to do with endorphins. "You should see Melissa's transformation," she told me one night, scrolling through her phone while I cleared dinner plates she'd barely touched. 6 months ago, her husband tried to control everything. Now he asks permission before buying lunch. I paused, dish towel in hand. "That seems extreme," I said. Julia's laugh had an edge I'd never heard before. "Is it? Men have been making unilateral decisions for centuries," she replied sharply. "We don't do that," I pointed out. "We make decisions together." She looked at me with an expression I couldn't read. "Do we, though? Who picked this house? Who decided we'd vacation in Sedona instead of Miami last year?" she challenged. "We both," I started, but she'd already turned back to her phone, typing rapidly. The intimacy between us became a negotiation I didn't remember entering. Julia started going to bed earlier, always asleep, or pretending to be, when I joined her. Weekend mornings, once sacred, became rushed affairs. She had workout classes, brunches with the girls, strategic planning sessions for Melissa's home organizing business. "I'm exhausted, Adam," became her standard response to any physical overture. "Why do you need constant validation?" she'd ask with irritation. Her criticisms started small, almost playful. "That shirt makes you look heavy," she'd comment. "Did you really think that joke was funny?" she'd question. "Sometimes I wonder if you're losing your edge at work," she'd muse. Each comment was delivered with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, followed by a quick, "just kidding," if I showed hurt. The pattern became undeniable. Every harsh comment, every withheld affection, every eye roll followed her gym sessions or lengthy phone calls. She'd emerge from these interactions armed with new terminology: emotional labor, mental load, weaponized incompetence, words that described real issues but were wielded like weapons in conversations that didn't warrant them. "I need you to take more ownership of our emotional landscape," she said one evening, after I'd suggested we spend Saturday together instead of her attending another workshop. "What does that even mean, Julia?" I asked, confused. "The fact that you have to ask proves my point." She shook her head with theatrical disappointment. Sarah's husband would never question her need for personal growth. Sarah, I'd learned, had trained her husband Tom to do all the cooking, cleaning, and laundry while she focused on self-actualization. Tom, who I'd met once at a group dinner, had the hollow eyes of a POW. I tried addressing it directly. "Jules, I feel like these new friends are..." "Are what?" Her voice went dangerously quiet. "Strong women who refuse to accept mediocrity?" "That's not what I began. "You're threatened," she stated it like fact. "These women understand marriage better than most. They've figured out how to make their relationships work." "By emasculating their husbands?" I asked. Julia's face transformed into something cold, unfamiliar. "There it is. Your fragile male ego can't handle a woman who doesn't worship you," she accused. "Julia, I've never asked you to worship me. I just want us to be partners, like we always were," I replied desperately. "Partners?" She laughed, but it sounded like breaking glass. "You mean when I supported your career while mine stagnated? When I managed our entire social calendar?" The dinner party 3 weeks later should have been my breaking point. Julia invited her gym friends and their husbands for what she called a casual get-together. "Adam thinks he's progressive," Julia announced to her audience, loud enough for everyone to hear. But yesterday he actually questioned why I needed a second yoga mat. Can you imagine? You bought a $300 yoga mat when we have two already, I said, trying to keep my tone light. The women exchanged knowing looks that said, "Poor man, he doesn't get it." "It's not about the mat," Melissa explained, as if talking to a child. "It's about Julia having the freedom to make choices without interrogation." "And Adam's usually so good," Julia added, patting my arm dismissively. "He's just been needy lately, clingy. I think he's having some professional insecurity." That night, after everyone left, I confronted Julia. "You humiliated me in front of our guests," I said. "I told the truth. If you're embarrassed by your behavior, maybe you should examine that behavior," she replied coldly. "My behavior? Julia, I love you. I've supported every decision you've made," I protested. She was already walking away. "I'm not doing this tonight. I have an early session tomorrow," she dismissed. Around 2 a.m., she received a text that made her quietly laugh. I pretended to sleep but heard her whispered phone conversation in the bathroom. "He's almost there," she said. "I just need to push a little harder." My blood went cold. I needed to know what was happening to my marriage. The moment I read those messages, something died inside me. Not love, but illusion. After that overheard phone call, I became hypervigilant, cataloging every interaction, every glance at her phone, every smirk she thought I didn't see. The breaking point came Thursday evening, 2 days after the phone call. Julia had returned from another girls' night, her fourth this week. She headed straight for the shower, tossing her phone on the nightstand, something she'd never done before. Her phone lit up with a notification. A message preview appeared. "Melissa, did you use the line about emotional labor?" Tom fell for it completely. My hands moved before my mind could stop them. The messages were all there, organized in a group chat called Queens Reclaiming Crowns. I scrolled back through months of conversations, watching my marriage dissected like a science experiment. Melissa. Day 30 of no intimacy. He's starting to beg. Soon he'll be grateful for any attention. Sarah. I told mine his opinion doesn't matter anymore. He actually apologized for having thoughts. Kate. 3 months in, and my husband does all the housework while apologizing for not doing it well enough. My hands shook as I found Julia's contributions from 3 months ago. Julia. Adam used to be so confident. Remember when I told you about his presentation skills? Now he second-guesses ordering coffee. It's almost sad how easy this was. Melissa. Almost sad? Girl, you're still too soft. Julia. You're right. He was actually a good husband before. Attentive, supportive, genuinely caring. Breaking someone who's already broken is easy. Breaking someone strong? That's art. A conversation from last week. Sarah. How much longer until he's fully trained? Julia. Maybe 2 months? Last week he apologized for suggesting we spend time together. Apologized for wanting to be with his wife. I nearly laughed in his face. Yesterday's conversation made me physically ill. Julia. Ladies, milestone achieved. Adam asked if he could join a work happy hour. Asked permission. Melissa. Yes. Did you give him permission? Julia. I said I'd think about it. You should have seen his face, like a kid hoping for candy. The best part is he thinks this is just a rough patch. He has no idea I'm doing this on purpose. Ha ha ha. I scrolled through their strategic planning. They shared articles about psychological manipulation, worksheets titled Daily Degradation Goals, Intimacy Withholding Schedules, Gaslighting Phrases That Work. One message included a shared document, Breaking Your Man, a 90-day guide. Julia had been checking off completed tasks for the past 4 months. Beside, make him question his professional competence, she'd added. Easier than expected. 2 weeks of subtle comments about younger coworkers, and he's constantly anxious. The most recent thread was from an hour ago. Melissa. Emergency meeting tomorrow. Karen's husband found our conversations and is filing for divorce. Julia. Adam would never check my phone. I've trained him to respect my privacy while I invade his constantly. Yesterday, I went through his work emails while he made me dinner. I quickly screenshotted the most damning messages, sending them to my email before deleting the evidence from her phone. I set it back exactly as she'd left it and got into bed. This wasn't a rough patch. This was calculated psychological abuse spanning 4 months, documented and celebrated. My wife had turned me into a project, an experiment in human degradation. Julia emerged from the bathroom, checking her phone for new messages, then slipped into bed with her back to me. "Good night," she said absently. "Julia?" I said quietly. She responded. "I love you," I told her. She paused, and for a moment I saw something flicker across her face. Guilt, regret, but it vanished. "Okay," she said, returning to her scrolling. That dismissive okay finalized my decision. Tomorrow, Julia would learn that some projects have unexpected outcomes. They always say revenge is a dish best served cold. They're wrong. It's best served with absolute certainty. I woke at 5 a.m., an hour before Julia's alarm. By the time she wandered downstairs at 7, I'd already contacted my lawyer friend Marcus and set everything in motion. "You're up early," she observed, pouring herself coffee without offering to refill my empty mug. "Couldn't sleep. Big day ahead," I replied. She made a non-committal sound, already checking her phone. A smile played at her lips, probably another message from her coven. "I might be late tonight," she said. "Melissa wants to discuss expanding her business." "Actually, that's perfect," I responded. Something in my tone made her look up. "Perfect?" she asked. "Just means I can work late without feeling guilty." I smiled openly. She studied me for a moment, then shrugged. I left work early, arriving home at 4 p.m. 2 suitcases waited in the garage where I'd staged them that morning. I placed them in our bedroom, then sat in the living room with the divorce papers Marcus had rushed through. Julia arrived home at 6:30. "The gym was packed," she complained, dropping her bag by the door. She walked past me toward the kitchen. "Did you start dinner? I'm starving." "Julia, we need to talk," I said firmly. She sighed dramatically. "Adam, seriously? Can't whatever crisis you're having wait?" "Pack your things and leave," I interrupted. The words hung in the air. Julia froze, then slowly turned, her expression cycling through confusion and irritation. "Excuse me?" she said. "You heard me. There are suitcases in the bedroom. Pack what you need tonight," I stated. She laughed. "Are you having some kind of breakdown?" "I know about your little project," I said calmly. The laughter died. Her face went pale. "I don't know what you're talking about," she replied, but her voice wavered. "Queens reclaiming crowns. Day 30 of no intimacy. Breaking someone strong is art. He has no idea I'm doing this on purpose. Should I continue?" I recited. Her phone slipped from her hand. "You went through my phone?" she gasped. "Ironic, considering you've been going through my emails while I make you dinner," I pointed out. Julia's survival instincts kicked in. Tears welled in her eyes. "Adam, baby, you don't understand. It was just venting," she pleaded. "Stop. You documented everything. Worksheets, guides, milestone markers. This wasn't venting. This was systematic psychological abuse," I said coldly. "Abuse? Adam, that's ridiculous. We've been together 12 years, she protested. "And you spent the last 4 months trying to break me to impress damaged women who've convinced themselves that cruelty is strength," I interrupted. The tears came harder. "It was their idea. Melissa kept pushing," she sobbed. "And instead of talking to me, your husband, you decided to try to break me," I replied. "We can work through this. Counseling. I'll cut off contact with those women, she begged. No. I pulled out the divorce papers. You're going to pack and leave. Tomorrow, you'll receive these papers at your parents' house. Julia dropped to her knees, grabbing my hands. I made a mistake, a terrible mistake. Please, Adam, I'll do anything, she pleaded desperately. I pulled my hands away. If you'd come to me 4 months ago when this started and said you were unhappy, I would have moved heaven and earth to fix it. Instead, you chose this, I said. I choose you now. I choose us, she cried. There is no us. You killed that. I walked to the door, opening it. 2 hours, Julia. Her tears stopped suddenly. The mask slipped. You're making a mistake. No one will love you like I do, she threatened. Thank God for that, I replied. I'll fight the divorce. I'll take everything, she snarled. You're welcome to try. I have screenshots of everything. 4 months of documented abuse. How do you think that'll play in court? I asked. Her face crumpled. I loved you, she whispered. You loved the idea of controlling me, I corrected. 90 minutes later, she descended with 2 suitcases. As she backed out of the driveway, she stopped, window down. Adam, please, she called out. I closed the door. The moment her taillights disappeared, something loosened in my chest. For the first time in 4 months, I could breathe. The house felt lighter, cleaner, mine again. My phone buzzed. Julia. This isn't who you are. I deleted it without responding. She'd trained me well, just not how she'd intended. She'd trained me to live without her entirely. 6 months have passed since Julia's taillights disappeared. The divorce was finalized 2 weeks ago, uncontested once her lawyer saw the evidence. She still texts occasionally, oscillating between contrition and accusation. Last week's started with, I've been in therapy and understand what I did wrong, before devolving into how I'd abandoned her when she needed help most. She claims she's cut ties with Melissa and Sarah, then somehow pivots to blaming me for not fighting harder. I don't respond. There's nothing left to say. The house feels like home again. I repainted the bedroom, replaced the gray Julia insisted on with warm blue. Her yoga room is now my office. Sunday mornings are still for coffee and quiet. Work has noticed the change. My presentations have regained their edge. My colleague Janet mentioned I seem like myself again. I've started dating. Rebecca is different. She laughs at my jokes without condescension, disagrees without attacking my character. It's early, tentative, but uncomplicated in a way I'd forgotten relationships could be. Julia found out about Rebecca somehow. Her texts that week were particularly vitriolic before shifting to desperate, "You replaced me already?" Followed by, "I could be better than her if you'd give me the chance." I blocked her number. According to rumors, Julia's living in a cramped apartment downtown. Her consulting business is struggling. Melissa's husband divorced her around the same time I left Julia, and Sarah's relationship imploded shortly after. The queens reclaiming crowns disbanded, each woman left to reckon with the wreckage they'd created. Last night I had dinner with my brother Patrick. "You look good," he said. "Like yourself again." "I feel like myself again," I replied. "You know what I never understood? Why she did it," he wondered. She confused power with cruelty. She had this group telling her that strength meant dominance. And maybe something from her parents' marriage made her susceptible to that message, I explained. "Could you ever forgive her?" he asked. "Forgive? Maybe someday, for my own peace. But trust her again? Never. She didn't just hurt me in anger. She planned my destruction for 4 months, documented it, celebrated it. How do you rebuild from that?" I answered. This morning, I woke to sunlight streaming through the windows. No tension, no anxiety, no strategic planning required just to navigate breakfast. My phone buzzed. A text from Rebecca. "Hope your Tuesday is starting well." "Better now," I replied, and meant it. Julia thought she was training me to be weak, dependent, grateful for scraps of affection. Instead, she taught me the most valuable lesson of my life. I don't need anyone who doesn't want me whole and undiminished. She taught me to recognize manipulation disguised as empowerment, cruelty masquerading as strength. She wanted to break me down into someone who would beg for her approval. Instead, she freed me from needing it at all. She thought she could train me to be grateful for scraps. Instead, she trained me to live without her entirely. Some games only have one winner, and the person who refuses to play always wins. And so, we've reached the end of today's story. Was it what you expected, or did it take a twist you didn't see coming? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below, and let's get a conversation going. If this story kept you hooked, make sure to hit that like button. And if you're new here or just haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to join our community. I bring you fresh, captivating stories every day, so click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.